If you're in dentistry, you know the materials you work with have to be tough. I mean, really tough. They face incredible forces every single day. But how do we actually know they're up to the task? How do we measure their strength and resilience in a scientific way? Well, in this explainer, we are going to do exactly that. We're going to break down the essential mechanical properties of dental materials, giving you the language and the concepts you need to understand what makes them work.
Hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of our series, and we are laser focused on the points that are absolutely critical for your exams. We're going to be breaking down the core concepts you really need to master, taken straight from the source material, so you can truly understand how these materials perform under pressure.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big why. Why even bother testing these materials? Then we'll get into the language with stress and strain. After that, we'll see how the tests are actually done, and we'll build the single most important graph in all of material science. And finally, the best part, we'll figure out what that graph is telling us and connect it right back to what you do in the clinic.
So, let's start at the beginning. Why does any of this really matter? Well, it all comes down to the absolutely incredible environment inside the human mouth. The forces we generate just by chewing are immense, and any material we put in there has to handle that abuse, day in and day out, without failing.
Think about it. Dental restorations are under a constant barrage of biting forces. So they need to be strong enough not to break, for sure, but they also have to be rigid enough to hold their shape perfectly. That's why we can't just guess. We have to scientifically measure and quantify these properties to make sure these materials are actually up to the job.
All right, to even talk about these properties, we need to be speaking the same language. And at its heart, that language really comes down to a simple cause and effect relationship between two fundamental concepts: stress and strain. Okay, so let's start with the cause, which is stress. When you apply an external force to a material, it doesn't just passively sit there. It actually generates an equal and opposite internal force to resist being squished or pulled apart. That internal resistance, that's what we call stress. We calculate it by taking the force we applied, the F, and dividing it by the area it's acting on, A. The unit we use for this is the Pascal. And what's the effect of that stress? Well, that would be strain. Strain is simply how we measure the deformation, how much the material actually changes shape. You just take the change in its length and divide it by its original length. And here's a super important exam point. Because you're dividing length by length, the units cancel out, so strain has no units. Now, stress isn't all the same. The two most basic types you'll see are tensile stress, that's the internal resistance when you're pulling or stretching something, and compressive stress, which is the resistance you get when you're pushing or squashing it. Okay, so we've got the lingo down, but how do we get the actual data? Let's move from the theory to the lab bench and see how these materials are actually put through their paces. This right here is a mechanical testing machine. Its whole job is to apply a very controlled force to a sample. And take a look at the unique shape of that blue specimen. See how it's thin in the middle? That's called a dumbbell shape, and it's designed that way for a really smart reason. It concentrates all the stress right in that thin section, which ensures that when the material breaks, it breaks there, not up where the machine is gripping it. Now, besides just a simple pull or push, a couple of other tests are really common. The 3-point bending test is great for measuring flexural strength. And for brittle materials, which are a nightmare to grip for a pulling test, we use this clever method called the diametral compressive test. You actually squash a little cylinder, and believe it or not, that creates a tensile failure. Pretty smart, right? Okay, so all of that testing spits out a ton of data. And that data lets us build what is, no exaggeration, the most important graph in all of material science. Let's build this stress-strain story piece by piece. So, the foundation of our story, our graph, has two axes. On the vertical y-axis, we're going to plot stress, that's our cause, the force we're applying. And on the horizontal x-axis, we'll plot strain, that's the effect, the deformation that happens. So, as we first start to apply a force, we get a perfectly straight line. In this region, stress is directly proportional to strain. This is the material's elastic zone. If you remove the force anywhere along this line, guess what? The material springs right back to its original shape, like a perfect rubber band. No harm done. The very end of this straight line is called the proportional limit, which we've marked as P. But if we keep pulling, the line starts to curve. We've gone past a critical point, the yield stress, or elastic limit, marked as E. Once you go past this point, the material is permanently changed. It's deformed. Even if you let go now, it won't go all the way back to its original shape. And for your exams,
Just remember that the proportional limit, P, is often used as a really close approximation of the yield stress, E.
And if we just keep on applying force, the stress builds and builds to a maximum point, T, and then, snap, the material fractures. The amount of stress it took to get to that point is the material's ultimate strength. It could be its ultimate tensile strength if we were pulling, or its ultimate compressive strength if we were pushing.
So we've built the graph, we've told the story, but the real magic is in reading what that story means. The shape of this curve, it's like a secret code that reveals everything about a material. So let's decode it.
Let's start with one of the most important and, frankly, most confusingly named properties, the modulus of elasticity. It's just the slope or the steepness of that initial straight line. Now, here is a huge exam trap. Despite its name, it does not measure how elastic or stretchy a material is. It measures the exact opposite. It measures stiffness or rigidity. A really steep slope means a high modulus and a very stiff material. A shallow slope means a low modulus and a more flexible material.
Okay, beyond stiffness, the area under this curve tells us a story about how the material absorbs energy. The area just under that first straight line part, that's its resilience. That's the amount of energy it can absorb and then release without deforming, like a spring. But the total area under the entire curve, all the way to the fracture point, that's its toughness. This is the total energy the material can soak up before it finally breaks. A tough material can really take a beating. And finally, that plastic, curvy part of the graph tells us about two related properties. Ductility is how much a material can be stretched or drawn out into a wire before it breaks. This is crucial for things like orthodontic wires. And malleability is how much it can be compressed or hammered into a thin sheet without cracking. Super important for adapting something like a metal denture base.
All right, now for the most important part of all. Why does any of this matter when you're actually with a patient? Let's connect these abstract properties to real-world dentistry. This is where it all comes together.
Okay, this table right here, this is exam prep gold. It connects the theory directly to the clinic. You need a high proportional limit for something like a partial denture connector, because it has to flex and spring back to its original shape over and over. You need a high modulus of elasticity, high stiffness, for a filling material so it doesn't bend and flex under chewing forces. High ductility is what lets us bend orthodontic wires and denture clasps without them snapping. And of course, high toughness is absolutely non-negotiable for pretty much any material that has to absorb those powerful biting forces without fracturing.
So you see, this one graph tells a material's entire life story. I'll leave you with a final thought to really apply what you've learned. Think about the ideal stress-strain graph for a really flexible impression material versus one for a super rigid dental implant. How would they look different? Think about the slope, where it breaks, and how much it stretches. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.